is SMNI News Channel. is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
Good evening, Philippines, and good day, world. It's Friday, September 29, 2023, and you're watching Newsline World. I'm Mayk Oliveira.
And I'm Deivid Lira. We are here to bring you the top stories we gather from all over the globe.
A leftist lawmaker in the Philippine Congress was lectured for his unethical statements in the plenary session.
The U.S. government is facing the possibility of shutdown this October, and according to an analyst, this could be a slow-motion train wreck that will hurt the American people.
A former senior ICC official was accused of funding the illegal army of the notorious Joseph Kony.
Japanese protesters took the streets to oppose the country's military expansion amid the rising inflation.
Now let's find out more about the latest highlights of the Team Philippines' achievements in the 19th Asian Games in Hangzhou City.
These and more for tonight's edition of Newsline World. In the news first, the congressman was lectured for making an unethical statement during a plenary session. Let's find out more about what has transpired on MJ Modahar's reports.
Madam Speaker, ano po ang basis ng emergency or calamity sa certification? Madam Speaker, hindi din naman
there's already a certification coming from the Office of the President.
I think
the Chair na rules that the point of the gentleman,
hindi pa ako tapos, Madam
the
Speaker.
Honorable Manuel is out of order.
Majority privilege. Madam Speaker, question
Madam
privilege.
Speaker, I reiterate my motion. There is a motion, the motion to proceed with the third reading on House Bill number 8980.
Inconsistent
So move, Madam Speaker.
Secretary General is directed to read the title of the measure and therefore call the roll for nominal voting.
That was the scene created by Kabataan Party List Representative Raul Manuel during the voting of the approval of the 2024 National Budget Bill before the House of Representatives. And it didn't stop there. Manuel acted out again after his microphone was turned off. So Abang Lingkod Representative Karaps Paduano came to the rescue and had the inappropriate remarks of the leftist lawmaker.
And that is not acceptable. That is unparliamentary comments of a congressman as a member of the House of Congress.
He emphasized that the leftist congressman's unethical statements were tarnishing the institution. Personal attacks and statements that damage the image of the House as an institution are not allowed in the plenary.
What I cannot tolerate is question of language, unparliamentary words being used during plenary session.
Furthermore, Congressman Paduano pointed out that Manuel's actions violated the House's codes of ethics. When the session resumes in November, Paduano intends to renew the motion to have Manuel's statements deleted.
If somebody will file a case, the Ethics Committee, tingnan natin, mas maganda nga, i-withdraw na ni Congressman Raul. No? He apologized, he withdraw it. But of course, sabi ko na nga, before the journal, during resumption, before the journal we approve, I will reiterate my motion that it should be strike out.
Meanwhile, the House has decided to divert the confidential funds from civilian agencies like Deivid and the Office of the Vice President. Paduano suggested allocating the funds to NTF-ELCAC instead.
Now, kung itong NTF-ELCAC is the solution for the AFP slowly making transition, going to external, focusing on external security, why not give them the budget? Now, let us see, after 3 years, we will evaluate, we'll assess, if indeed, tama ang request.
Former President Rodrigo Duterte instituted the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict, or NTF-ELCAC, that is now being continued by President Bongbong Marcos through the use of good governance and battling the country's problem of insurgency. For Ganamable of Philippines, MJ Mondihar, SMNI News.
Meanwhile, the U.S. government is facing a possible shutdown next month. This follows the clash between the Democrats and Republicans over the country's national budget for the next fiscal year. Federico Veloso will tell us more about this live. Fred?
Yes, Mikey, the U.S. national debt reaching $33 trillion, the government is in danger of shutting down in October as the Congress is in a deadlock over funding. An analyst said that this potential shutdown will be a slow-motion train wreck for the said country.
As Democrats and Republicans battle over the federal budget for the new fiscal year, the U.S. is on the verge of another damaging federal government shutdown, which would see all non-essential operations suspended, aside from departments that the U.S. government deem essential, such as the military, border defense, and public security. Inar Tanjin, an independent political and economic affairs commentator, who is also the senior fellow at the Taipei Institute, a Beijing-based think tank, said the U.S. is lurching from one crisis to the next, noting that have been a total of 14 shutdowns since 1981. He said that relatively small number of members of the Republican Freedom Caucus are staging a political hijacking in a bid to push through their own agenda. Tanjan also warned that ordinary citizens will end up paying the price.
It's just going from one crisis to the next. I mean, 14 since 1981. This is supposed to be a country that is a flagship for democracy and capitalism, yet it can't seem to get its house in order. In essence, what you have right now is the Republican Freedom Caucus. It's about 40 people, and they want to, as they say, wag the dog. And that's 40 out of 435 members of the House of Representatives. So this is a political hijacking to get their fiscal and social policies through, even though they're a minority. And it's going to be a slow-motion train wreck that's going to hurt the people at the bottom. Ironically, Congress will receive paychecks while others suffer.
Tanjin said many politicians in the U.S. seem overly obsessed with military spending, which comes at the expense of addressing key issues which affect the domestic population, including poverty.
At the heart of this, the United States has become, in essence, a Ponzi scheme. It borrows money to pay the interest on money it has already borrowed and has no plan whatsoever to pay it back as a whole. And at this time, the only thing that's exempt is the military, so you're in essence feeding the military while starving the people. This is, it's not the end. Even if they got this continuation in November, there would be even a harder struggle as they try to pass a budget. There'd probably be another continuation. It's too polarized to do anything. I don't think that either side is willing to give in, especially during an election year. McCarthy, as pointed out, has a very difficult situation. He can try to get something passed that's reasonable. If he does so, though, the Freedom Caucus may well take his head, and he will become a casualty.
A total of 8 shutdowns occurred during the administration of Ronald Reagan, the 40th President of the United States. Since then, the government managed to avoid any funding debates until 2013. However, the threat of shutdowns has become more frequent and longer over the past 10 years. In September 2013, the U.S. government closed for more than 2 weeks as the Republican-led House sought to delay then-President Barack Obama's health care law, known as Obamacare. The latest and also longest shutdown happened in December 2018, stretching for over a month amid a dispute over then-President Donald Trump's demand for $5.7 billion to pay for a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border.
Mike, in the latest update, the Democratic-led U.S. Senate forged with a bipartisan stop-gathering funding bill to avert the looming shutdown. Meanwhile, the House started voting on partisan Republican spending bills. These two chambers are taking two different paths that increase the odds that U.S. federal agencies will run out of money this Sunday. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you very much. That's Federico Veloso live on SMNI Studios.
The U.S. Department of State Antony Blinken and his Indian counterpart Dr. Jaishankar met at Washington, D.C. to discuss various issues. However, both diplomats did not discuss the role between India and Canada over the killing of a Khalistani activist who was wanted terrorist in India. Carlo de la Peña reports.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome my friend and colleague, Foreign Minister Jaishankar, here to the State Department, back to Washington. We've had very good discussions over the last weeks, of course, at the G20, in New York, at the General Assembly, and I'm looking forward to pursuing them this afternoon.
Well, thank you, Tony. Good to be back here. And we, of course, had the Prime Minister here this summer. We thank the U.S. for all the support at the G20 summit. And I actually look forward to seeing you in Delhi for the 2+2.
I look forward to that as well. Thanks, everyone.
This is what India Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar and U.S. Secretary of State talked about during their meet on Thursday in Washington, D.C., amid the India-Canada row over the killing of a Khalistani activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a wanted terrorist by India and the Interpol. However, reports said the issue did not come up during the meeting between Blinken and Jaishankar. To recall, earlier on Thursday, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said he was sure that Blinken would raise the killing of Nijjar with his meeting with Jaishankar, and that Washington has given its assurance that the allegations against India will be raised. Despite this, there was zero mention of the issue during the said meeting between the two top diplomats. They did not say anything about the diplomatic standoff between India and Canada over the death of Nijjar. A reporter present at the press conference asked Blinken, but it went unanswered as they headed out of the venue. What Blinken and Jaishankar talked about, however, were a full range of issues, including the outcomes of India's G20 presidency, the creation of the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor, and the continued importance of cooperation ahead of the upcoming 2+2 dialogue, particularly in the areas of defense, space, and clean energy. Last week, Trudeau claimed that the Canadian government had shared evidence regarding the killing of Nijjar with India weeks ago, and before this, he first claimed that the government was probing credible allegations that India may have a prominent role in the said killing.
Over the past number of weeks, Canadian security agencies have been actively pursuing credible allegations of a potential link between agents of the government of India and the killing of a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
Last week, U.S. Ambassador David Cohen told Canadian CTV News Network that there was shared intelligence among Five Eyes partners that helped lead Canada make the statements that Trudeau made. On June 18, 2023, Nijjar was shot by two unidentified men in a parking lot in Surrey, Canada. Indian authorities said Nijjar was involved in the Khalistan separatist movement and had gained Canadian citizenship despite forging his real identity. Nijjar was designated as a terrorist by the Indian government in 2020. Meanwhile, State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said that the U.S. consistently engaged with India on this issue and has urged the Indian government to cooperate.
We have consistently engaged with the Indian government on this question and have urged them to cooperate, and that engagement and the urge for them to cooperate will continue.
And in another twist of events, Trudeau said that his government is committed to building closer ties with India, and that it is extremely important that Ottawa and its allies continue their engagement constructively and seriously with New Delhi, considering its increasing geopolitical importance. Reporting, this has been Carlo de la Peña, SMNI News.
Meanwhile, in Japan, demonstrators took to the streets of Tokyo to protest against the country's move to increase its military budget amid increasing prices of basic commodities. Ria Saito reports.
Many Japanese citizens protested in Tokyo on Thursday amid the government's pursuit of military expansion in disregard of the severe inflation and increasing pressure on the livelihoods of the people. Protesters gathered at a bustling business district in Tokyo. They were seen holding banners and demanding that the government should follow the Constitution's Article 9 and adhere to peace diplomacy. They also want the government to stop following the U.S. strategy of military expansion and allocate more financial funds to areas that foster economic development.
日本も物価がとっても高くなっていて、貧困にもっともっとなっていく人がいる中で、もっともっと抑えられるところ、お金を使う場所が確実に間違っていると思います。
Other protesters want Japan to halt its pursuit of military expansion and instead draw lessons from its history of invasion, which caused immense harm to the peoples of Asia.
だからやっぱりもっと国民のね生活とか考えてもらいたいなと思っていて、未来とか将来とか物価が上がって大変でご飯食べるのも大変だってこともやっぱり全部つながってるってことをやっぱり訴えたいと思います。
もうどれだけ死ななくていい人たちを殺したかってことですね。そういうことを考えたらやっぱり二度と戦争はしちゃいけません。
The demonstrators also said that the government has continued to violate its pacifist constitution by significantly boosting its military forces and repeatedly increasing its military expenditure to record high levels. They say that this move is a grave threat to regional peace and stability. 以上の形でのようにお伝えしました。SB9 News Japan.
China lifted the trade sanctions of billions of dollars of Australian rain and chaff exports, taken as a sign of improving ties between the two countries. China Saline tell us more.
China has renewed Australia's hay exports permits after 2 years of being locked out of the market. Australia's hay exports to China were worth about $160 million every year before the ban was imposed in 2020. By 2022, the exports decreased to more than half, or equivalent to $78 million annually. Despite this, China was still Australia's third biggest market last year. China has lifted trade sanctions on several Australian products like timber, cotton, and coal since May. Trade Minister Don Farrell hailed the full resumption of the hay trade as a positive step forward, but admitted there's still more work to do. At present, other Australian products like wine, beef, and seafood products still face hefty tariffs and a trade ban in China. The federal government pledged to continue its dispute with the World Trade Organization about China's sanction on imports of Australian wine. Meanwhile, Peter Malinowskis, the Premier of South Australia, previously said the country is looking to revive trade ties with its biggest trading partner, as he visited China last week, along with a large trade delegation.
This is an important relationship. It's getting back on track, and it's something that we're very excited about across the nation.
Reporting from Melbourne, this is Sheena Selim, SB9 News, Australia.
More than 56,000 schools have closed in Pakistan to prevent a highly contagious eye virus from spreading among students. Melchizedek Cadiz has the details.
Assalamualaikum. Millions of students in Pakistan stayed at home for the rest of the week due to the alarming surge in conjunctivitis cases that had affected hundreds of thousands nationwide. Conjunctivitis is a fast-spreading eye infection that causes redness, itchiness, and discharge from the eyes, which can spread through hand contact as well as coughing and sneezing. Punjab, the most populous province in Pakistan and a state bordering India, has announced 4-day school closures after it recorded 357 conjunctivitis cases since the start of the year. Schools in the province will remain closed from September 28th to October 1st, after students have complained of eye infections. The closure covered 56,000 state schools as well as thousands of independent schools. Meanwhile, the highest number of infections in the province has reported in Lahore, the second largest city in Pakistan. The Punjab Education Department hopes the temporary school closure will break the cycle of the infection in the province. Barakallahu fikum jami'an. Kan hada Melchizedek Cadiz sa akhbar SB9 Kuwait.
More news when Newsline World returns.
incident shocked the world, but a year later, Poland's investigation concluded that it was a Ukrainian missile that struck a Polish border village. Poland's investigation involving a missile that killed 2 Polish farmers in the border village of Przewadów in November 2022 has concluded. According to Polish Justice Minister Zbigniew Ziobro, the said missile was a Ukrainian missile and that was fired by Ukrainians. The minister stressed that the projectile likely originated from Soviet-era stockpiles or was possibly produced by modern Russia. Still, it was fired by Ukrainians. To recall, Polish media reported the investigators had established that the missile was an older anti-aircraft projectile called 5V55, which is fired by S-300 systems. The Justice Minister said that Ukraine was very uncooperative during the investigation. He also alleged that their lack of cooperation was part of the decisions at a high political level in Kyiv's government. To recall, on November 15, 2022, the Ukrainian military was attempting to repel a barrage of Russian missiles against a target in western Ukraine and the immediate vicinity of Lviv city. The projectile landed at the local grain farm, killing 2 middle-aged farmers. Ukraine quickly blamed Russia and insisted that it was Russia who launched the strike on the collective security of NATO. Deivid at the time world stood still because a Russian missile reaching Polish soil and killing a Polish citizen could mean an outward war between Russia and NATO. But US President Joe Biden said that was unlikely that Russia had done it and will wait results that lead us to the present time conclusion. Back to you, Deivid.
Thank you. That's Natalia Prado live on SMNI Studios.
Russia's bold trade shift, less to the west, more to friends, and booming fish export industry. Let's hear more from Andrea Santos.
Russia has made big changes in its food trade with other countries. The agriculture minister of Russia, Dmitry Patrushev, said that they introduced the amount of food they sell to unfriendly countries like the West by $2.6 billion last year. It can be noted that the unfriendly countries list include the United States, European member states, and NATO member countries with the exception of Turkey. At the same time, they sold more food to countries that are neutral or friendly to Russia, increasing those sales by $2.7 billion. Patrushev explained that because of the geopolitical situation, Russia had to change where it sent its food. He also mentioned that this change will continue in the future. When it comes to fish, Patrushev said that Russia managed to send more fish to other countries. Even though Western countries put restrictions on them, they increased fish exports by 4% last year. Also, more countries started buying Russian fish, going from 60 countries in 2022 to 80 this year. Russia wants to find new places to sell its food products. Last year, Russia made $41.6 billion from selling food to other countries. This year, they expect to make $42 billion. Food exports are now the third largest way Russia makes money for its budget, right after oil and gas. Reporting, this is Andrea Santos, SMNI News.
The Prime Minister of Iraq visited injured victims of deadly blaze that killed dozens during a large wedding party held early this week. Grateru Omori has the news.
Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammed Shia met the injured patients and families of victims who died from a devastating fire on Tuesday. A large Christian wedding party attended by more than 1,000 guests in Nineveh province turned from a joyous celebration into a tragic nightmare after a deadly fire engulfed the hall in the predominantly Christian district of Al-Hamdaniyah. The fire started shortly before midnight on Tuesday when sparklers were lit as the bride and groom prepared for their slow dance. Within seconds, the ceiling of the hall caught fire and trapped the guests inside. Iraqi authorities put the death toll at 113, with some of the victims burned alive, some died of suffocation, and others from the stampede. About 150 others died from injuries. The Prime Minister led a delegation of ministers and security officials to visit the injured victims at 2 local hospitals and ordered those in critical condition to be sent abroad for treatment. Hundreds joined a large funeral procession held in Hamdaniya as people continued searching for their loved ones, while others rushed to donate blood in overwhelmed hospitals. Reporting from Dubai, this has been Gratero Omori, SM9 News, United Arab Emirates.
Newsline World will be back after the break.
Hey, we're glad you found SM9 News. If you subscribe to TV programs that help build the nation, then we got you covered. Watch your favorite TV shows through GSAT TV Channel 40, Signal TV Channel 186. And if you are a Sky Cable subscriber, you can watch SM9 in National Capital Region, Sky Cable Channel 162, Cebu, Sky Cable Channel 37, Davao City, Sky Cable Channel 14, 43, and 46, General Santos City, Sky Cable Channel 37, Zamboanga, Sky Cable Channel 53, Bacolod, Sky Cable Channel 37, Iloilo, Sky Cable Channel 36, Dumaguete, Sky Cable Channel 37, Baguio, Sky Cable Channel 14, and Lawag, Sky Cable Channel 10. You may also watch SM9 on digital TV in Davao City and Manila, and also in TV Plus and GMA Afford the Box and over 500 cable TV affiliates nationwide. Watch SM9 on digital channels in Mega Manila, Channel 39 and 43. We are also on Analog TV in Lawag, Channel 35, Isabela, Channel 37, Vegan, Channel 38, Rojas, Channel 39, Butuan, Channel 39, and Davao, Channel 43. If you're on your mobile phone, download SM9 app or visit smni.com to get the latest news, updates, and more. Also, browse through the day's top stories and receive notifications for breaking news. Watch us live on our official Facebook and Rumble accounts, and you can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, so you don't miss out on our extra minute segments. Wherever you decide to watch, we're glad you choose SM9 News, the home of nation builders who bravely bring truth that matters.
Back in the news, the government of Uganda is investigating allegations that an ex-ICC official funded an illegal army known for its human rights violations. Gabriel Diaz has the details.
Brigid Inder, a former senior official of the International Criminal Court or ICC,
allegedly financed the Lord's Resistance Army, or LRA, an illegal army known for its human rights violations. It was Ugandan Attorney General Karyua Kiwanuka who made the remarks. Meanwhile, press release issued by a lawyer representing ex-child soldiers of the LRA states in quote, "Numerous victims have alleged that between 2006 and 2017, Ms. Bridget Inder facilitated and financed Joseph Kony, the leader of the Lord's Resistance Army in Uganda. If found true, the Ugandan Attorney General said, Bridget Inder will be prosecuted to ensure justice for the victims. It can be noted that Inder was a special gender advisor to ex-prosecutor Fatou Bensouda from 2012 to 2016. She was also involved in peace talks between the LRA and Uganda's government. Inder denied the accusations, calling it sensational and untrue. Inder said that she had never met Kony and had never handed him envelopes full of money. The ex-ICC senior official also said that the allegations against her stem from a disgruntled employee who was dismissed from Women's Initiative for Gender Justice for misconduct in 2014. The Lord's Resistance Army is an extremist group accused of human rights violations, including mass murder, abductions, sexual slavery, and recruiting child soldiers. Its leader Joseph Kony started a violent and bloody rebellion in northern Uganda in late 1980s. Kony's rebellion spread to Sudan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the Central African Republic. This resulted in the deaths of more than 100,000 people and the displacement of more than 2 million people. And over 60,000 children were also abducted. The ICC issued an arrest warrant for Kony in 2005 due to alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity. And up to this day, Kony remains at large. Reporting, this has been Gabriel Diaz, SMNI News.
The Chinese Defense Ministry made it clear that Taiwan's first home-built submarine will not stop plans for peacefully reunification with China. The ministry is blamed the United States for its interference in the South China Sea issue and for sabotaging peace in the region. Anissa de Guzman reports.
Beijing made it known that Taiwan unveiling its first domestically made submarine will not affect Beijing's plan for reunification with a self-governing island. Officially named Haikun or Narwhal, the first made-in-Taiwan submarine is expected to play a major role in an event of conflict with mainland China. Wei Chen, the spokesman for the Chinese Ministry of Defense, made the statement during a press briefing in Beijing following Taiwan's move to unveil its first ever locally made submarine on Thursday. According to the Taiwan Military Authority, the submarine will help strengthen its Navy force to stop the Chinese People Liberation Army from entering the Pacific Ocean and surrounding the self-governing island.
不过是螳臂当车，终将会自取灭亡。至于你谈到什么阻止解放军进入太平洋，这不是痴人说梦，这是什么？无论民进党当局建造或者购买多少武器，都阻挡不了祖国统一的大势，都撼动不了解放军捍卫国家主权和领土完整的坚强决心、坚定意志、强大能力。
Meanwhile, the Chinese Defense Ministry called on the United States to stop interfering on the internal affairs related to South China Sea and for sabotaging peace in the region. The comments came after the United States donated 2 ships to the Philippine Navy earlier this month following tensions in the South China Sea. The 2 patrol boats will conduct military missions such as guarding the charter vessels, bringing supply to Ren Ai Rift together with the Philippine Coast Guard vessels.
包括仁爱礁在内的南沙群岛及其附近海域拥有无可争辩的主权。二战结束后，中国政府根据开罗宣言和波茨坦公告，收回了南海诸岛的主权。这一历史清清楚楚。菲律宾领土范围由1898年美西和平条约以及1900年、1930年一系列国际条约确定，包括仁爱礁在内的南沙群岛及黄岩岛不在其领土范围之内。南海本无事，美国来扰之。美向菲提供2艘老掉牙的巡逻艇，虽然发挥不了什么实际作用，但这种做法本身 暴露了美方南海搅局者与和平稳定破坏者的真面目。我们敦促美方停止插手南海问题，停止破坏南海和平稳定。
ดิฉันอลิซาเดกุสมันรายงานจากกรุงเทพมหานคร SMN News ประเทศไทยสวัสดีค่ะ
For our sports news, Alex Ayala and Francis Casey Alcantara both won bronze medals in the tennis mixed doubles in the 19th Asian Games. Meanwhile, Gilas women's team overwhelmed Hong Kong in the preliminary round of Group B. Sigrid Casenida tells us more.
The Philippines continues to earn medals in the 19th Hangzhou Asian Games. Alex Ayala and Francis Casey Alcantara both won bronze in the tennis mixed doubles. Meanwhile, Chinese Taipei duo In Chao Liang and Chung Hao won the semi-finals match in 2 sets with a score of 7-5, 6-3. Their game lasted nearly 2 hours. This is Ayala's second bronze medal and is the 6th medal for the Philippine team. Meanwhile, Tea Isabella Salvino, Tanya Angeline De La Cruz, Jasmine Alcalde and Kyla Noel Sanchez of the women's 4x100-meter medley relay entered the finals after finishing Heat 1 in 4 minutes and 10.80 milliseconds. The Philippine tankers will soon face Chinese Taipei, Singapore, Japan, Korea, Hong Kong, Kazakhstan, and Thailand. For basketball, the Gilas women's team overwhelmed Hong Kong with a score of 99-63 in the Group B preliminary round. The first quarter had a score of 19-20. In the second quarter, the Gilas outscored their opponents with a score of 42-33. In the third quarter, Gilas extended their lead further until the end of the match. Janine Puntejos led the teams with 23 points, while April Bernardino scored 20 points. Gilas girls will go face-to-face with Japan on Sunday, October 1. For God and my beloved Philippines, this has been Sigrid Castaneda, SMNI News.
Athletes take a break from the 19 Asian Games to celebrate the Mid-Autumn Festival in China. What kind of activities did they participate in? Let's find out with Kai Villan.
Athletes from various countries have been taking a well-deserved break from the cut and thrust of competition in East China's Hangzhou city to join in celebrations for the Mid-Autumn Festival, with many athletes trying their hand at some cultural activities as part of the festivities. The Mid-Autumn Festival, marked on the 15th day of the 8th month of the Chinese lunar calendar, falls on Friday this year. The festival is known as a time where families get together, eat traditional mooncakes, light up lanterns, and celebrate good harvests. One of the focal points of the festival is the full moon and the clear night skies above Hangzhou allowed athletes, officials, and media personnel the chance to enjoy a pleasant moonlit evening while riding a boat on the picturesque West Lake, one of the most famous scenic spots in the city. Athletes from various nations across Asia also gathered to sing some well-known Chinese songs together, giving their best wishes to each other on the eve of the festival.
我们同时看月亮，感觉像回家一样，给我们带来了新的朋友，还有过的中国的重要的节日。
The festive vibe was also present in the Asian Games village, where foreign athletes were able to experience various long-standing customs for themselves. This included making lanterns, guessing oracle bone script riddles, and trying their hand at traditional painting techniques, giving them a glimpse into Chinese culture and helping take their minds off the pressures of the competition.
This is the first time I saw this technique from the art, and I impressed that, so get to know more about China.
The Asian Games is not about only competitions, it's about more about culture, getting together, communicating with each other. So I'm sure when the athletes go back, they will have a big, good memory.
The Hangzhou Asian Games, which will run until October 8, is one of the largest ever editions of the regional sports extravaganza. More than 12,500 athletes are taking part in 40 sports, 61 disciplines, and 481 events across 54 competition venues in Hangzhou and 5 other cities of Zhejiang Province. Reporting for Newsline World, Kai Villan, SMNI News.
And before we end, may you be inspired with the message of the appointed Son of God. you will change the world.
And for our Christmas countdown, it's 86 days to go before Christmas. And that's all for tonight's edition of Newsline World. For more news update, you may visit us on SMNInewschannel.com or follow us on our official social media accounts on Rumble, Facebook, and Twitter. For God and Country, I'm Mayk Oliveira.
For God and Country, I'm Deivid Lira. Thank you for watching Newsline World, and thank you to our beloved Pastor Paulo Sikiboloy, for the opportunity to be part of this program.
May you continue to listen on SMNI as it delivers nothing but fair, truthful, and balanced news, because SMNI is your source of credible news.
Subscribe to SMNI News